Welcome to Canine Codes Puppy Class number 5. I always get super excited about this class because I'm so passionate about what I'm about to teach you. It's the reason why I went into dog training, and I still find it endlessly fascinating. I'm going to give you the key for how to earn respect. This won't just work with your pet puppy. You'll find that it covers domestic dogs, wolves, zebras, humans, and perhaps even goldfish alike. It reflects group dynamics no matter of what species. Here's a good thing to know. Every team that has to work together will form a hierarchy. The more pressure you put on the team, the steeper the hierarchy pyramid will become. Let's do a little thought experiment and look at different workplaces, for example. You'll see how in a clothing store, the hierarchy may actually be quite flat, if existent at all. Whereas if you then suddenly look at a bigger organization, like a school or a sports club, you'll immediately see how suddenly there are titles, perhaps even privileges, certain processes, and perhaps even uniforms. That continues as we look into corporate, competitive businesses, elite sports teams, and of course the police force or fire station, and at the very extreme, our military. And this dynamic doesn't just play out in the workplace, it also plays out within a family. So typically here in the West, where we are safe from day to day and there's no scarcity as such, we have made a real virtue out of flattening the pyramids within our families. But if you look at a third world country where perhaps there is scarcity and even danger of physical attack, you'll see how within their families there's typically a much steeper drop from the tier of the head of the family, typically the father, to the mother, to the children, and at the very bottom, their animals. It's important to understand that dogs haven't evolved as much as we have, and therefore they still think more like a wild animal. And in the wild, life is dangerous. Your dog is born with a wild animal's instincts, and therefore it is programmed to perceive the world as more threatening and dangerous than you do. Therefore, if you don't provide them with a steep hierarchy, then they will feel unsafe, just like you would if you were in the military and your general wasn't holding rank and maintaining order. Imagine for a moment that you woke up tomorrow morning, bullets hitting the walls, rockets hitting your ceiling, you're in a military camp, and yet nobody does anything about it. The general is busy playing pool. Someone is raiding the fridge. Another person is taking up the emergency phone line, talking to his loved ones. And yet the enemy is kicking the door down right now. What would you do? I hope you didn't say hide. That will only be, as we say in Danish, like peeing in your pants to stay warm. It will come back at you sooner or later. Instead, I hope you thought I would do something about it. I would stand up and I would start yelling at other people to do something. Because that is how hierarchies are formed out of anarchy. Where a group was perfectly happy not having a strict hierarchy, when suddenly danger presents itself, someone will peep up, set off the alarm and go, hey, we need to get organized. And here is my ideas for a strategy for how to deal with the situation. Then someone else, of course, will go, yep, you're right, I see it. But I have other ideas about how to do it. And a third one has his ideas, and then suddenly now you've got a power struggle of who should be in charge of this situation. And here's something important to remember. Although you can get to the top through different avenues and using different tricks, only the person who is truly the most competent for that situation will be able to hold that role sustainably. You've probably had a manager in the past that you didn't find competent. And do you remember how you felt and the thoughts you had? Were they similar to, I'll just do this without even asking. I'll just sneak this behind their back. I'll just get around this in a different way. That's all signs of disrespect for the leadership. I'm going to help you today convince your dog that you are indeed the most competent to be in charge of your pack and that your puppy is lucky to be on your team. Let's just look at how you can gain power over someone else. And for that, we're going to jump from the army to the mafia. Because the mafia is an excellent example of a large team working together in dangerous circumstances. How does the mafia usually gain control over other people? I would say force, right? Using threats and force and aggression. In dog training, we could call that punishments. How do they gain control of someone that they can't force, like policemen or politicians? They use bribery. So in dog training, known as rewards. And then there's a third kind of power. Why is it that the nephews hand over power to the godfather? Why do they ask him for advice and follow his directions? Aretha Franklin had it. It's the magic respect word. The nephews have seen that the godfather has skills to gain access to things that they want in life. It could be speedboats and expensive suits, hot women, drugs, weapons, money. I don't believe that the godfather would usually have to tell the nephews just how much he would pay for a nephew to knock off Uncle Toby, or what kind of punishment he would dish out if someone didn't follow his orders. Instead, he relies on the nephews to be eager to earn his approval. This means that the nephews have become eager to please, and that is exactly what we want from your dog. That is obedience. So we need to show your dog that you have the skills to gain access to everything they want and only give it to them when they're not asking, except if they're patting the door because they want to go to the bathroom, then you should listen every time. Okay. Sometimes I have known dogs to go and tap at the door just to get attention and not because they have to go to the toilet. You'll know if that's going on by the fact that when you open up the door, instead of running out, they just look up at you going, "Do you want to play?" If that happens, then just assess with yourself, should my dog need to go to the toilet just yet? Or were they in fact just trying all sorts of other attention-seeking behaviors and now this is just another one? You know your dog and you'll know when to respond and when not to. Before I go on to explaining to you exactly how to build up status as a leader, let's just look at how you relate yourself to different leadership types. Let's say you're back in military base and now the whole base is getting evacuated. Fortunately, you have a choice which general you want to leave with, knowing it's going to be a hazardous journey. you'll be in much danger, and it's important that you choose someone who can pull through and keep you safe. Would you rather leave in the Jeep with General Guy Sebastian, the pop singer? Or would you rather leave in the Jeep with Kyle Sandilands, the radio jock? Or would your choice perhaps be to leave with Morgan Freeman, the actor? Of course, I'm stereotyping here, but just stick with me for this example. Assuming that they maintain the personalities that they're known for, who would you choose to keep you safe? If you didn't choose Guy Sebastian, why not? Some say that he's too nice. And what's wrong with being too nice? I'll tell you what, in a dangerous situation, they're too open to everybody else's opinion, and you won't know who's going to be in charge. If you didn't choose Kyle Sandilands, why not? My reason would be that I don't trust him not to lose his head. I've seen him get angered and turn on his own when his authority was questioned. I can't afford that to happen when already I'm under attack from an external enemy. I would choose Morgan Freeman because he commands an authority that makes me trust him. He inhabits a calmness that makes me believe he thinks first and acts later. I trust that he will make his own decisions and that I will be free to follow him or go my own way. He doesn't need me to be on his team. He is enough in himself. So my point here is, if you didn't choose the type of leader who caves into begging, then don't be the kind of leader who caves in. And if you didn't choose the type of leader who cracks it, then don't be the type of leader who loses his cool. Instead, feel your feet, take a breath, and ask yourself, what would Morgan Freeman do? I'm now going to give you the formula for how to earn respect. It is the most important thing that I can teach you about dog training. So try to memorize this formula. Only give your dog what it wants when it didn't tell you to. Only give your dog anything they want in life when they are not telling you to give it to them. They can't be requesting it with begging big brown eyes. They can't be nudging you or barking at you or throwing a full-blown tantrum. Any of it would be them trying to take control and make a decision. Instead, I want them to know that all those things, all those attractive things in life only come when you make the decision to hand them out. Now, all that can still sound a little conceptual. Don't worry, I'm going to break it down in absolute detail. There are 4 categories for what dogs want: attention, access to spaces, resources, and activities. The good news is that you can give your dog whatever you want. You can pamper them as much as you want. The only rule is, do you remember? Only give those privileges to your dog when they didn't ask for them. Now, I mentioned before that the 4 categories for what dogs want are attention, access to spaces, resources, and activities. Today, we're going to take control of attention. It's at the very core of power because really, it's like mind control. So far, I bet your puppies have made a really good job of constantly getting you to turn your thoughts to them. They might have shredded a pot plant, they might have nudged your leg with a toy, they might have whimpered, they might even have barked. They already know all the tricks. I even at times see puppies who will go to the toilet right in front of their owner, looking them straight in the eyes, knowing that that more than anything is going to get them attention. Just to be clear, giving someone attention in the dog's world is primarily giving them eye contact. After that, it will be important if you touch them and then also if you're talking to them. From now on, I'd like you to practice only giving your puppy eye contact when they didn't tell you to. It's a hard habit to adopt, so by all means, help each other within a family. And just here's a little marital advice. Be really good at receiving the reminder. Don't start arguing about whether you did or whether you didn't and whether they asked or you didn't. Just go with it, because you need each other's support to create this habit of only giving your puppy eye contact when they didn't instigate it. This particularly counts around greetings. So the thing is about greetings that they of course follow a separation. And whenever your dog has been separated from you, especially if you left the den, then they don't know what happened to you. Patrolling territory is dangerous business as well as a hunt. So perhaps you got injured or just tired, older, sick, who knows? And the dog's greeting ritual is designed to reestablish, hey, where are you at right now? How much energy and strength do you have? I've just been gaining 500 grams while you were at work. Perhaps this is the day when I should be taking over. If you walk in and greet your dog like another family member, hugging, crouching down and being playful and engaging straight away, then you have just communicated, yep, I don't know who's in control either. We are peers, and now we should engage in a playful and friendly manner to see how we are going to establish ourselves in the hierarchy. Just think about the difference between how you greet a family member and a CEO of the company you work for. You have no business steering in for the big bear hug. Instead, you're supposed to give them personal space and offer them your hand, acknowledging them with your palm, but not at all encroaching on them and not asking them personal questions. If you were to greet a general in military, you are obliged to salute him or her when they walk into the room, but they're not obliged to salute you. In fact, by protocol, they would salute you when it's a demand for you to talk to them. They'll walk straight past you as they enter the room, being too important and too busy to give you individual attention. And then when they're ready and on their terms, they'll send you a signal through a salute to talk to them. So guess how I would like you to greet your dog from now on. I'd like you to walk in through that door, greet everyone else in your family first, and only once your dog is no longer telling you what to do and demanding to be acknowledged, then you could invite them over to come and greet you all on your terms. For me, that means that if they start jumping on me, I immediately stop greeting them and ignore them until they have stopped pestering me. For you, you can choose to interact with them however way you like. You can even encourage them to jump on you or lie on the floor and roll around and be affectionate. Knock yourself out having fun with your puppy like that, because you can do all of the above as long as it happens when you said you wanted it to happen. That still leaves you in charge. It's a common misconception that parents think that they're giving a dog to their kids, and now it's their kid's dog, and their kids are going to be the pack leader of the dog. It simply can't happen. The puppy is going to mature much faster than your child and will soon consider itself older than the child. And just like if you had a 19-year-old daughter, she would never let your 11-year-old son boss her around. Furthermore, your child really doesn't have to be above the dog in the hierarchy in the dog's eyes. In fact, it's absolutely fine that your puppy matures past your child and becomes somewhat of a babysitter for your children. That's when you get them being really generous and forgiving and tolerant of whatever your child might offer them. I think a lot of parents do get a little surprised at just how hard it is to have young children and little puppies together. It's hard, and it's going to require constant supervision. Yes, you have to be there all the time, and yes, you pretty much will have to manage their interaction constantly. Of course, you can do smart things like making sure that you've just taken your puppy to the dog park once it's vaccinated, and then bringing them home for just when you pick up the kids from school, and so the puppy might be a little bit more tired and not quite as playful when the kids are wanting to interact with it. However, here's a few tips for how to help your kids interact with your puppy. First of all, when they're playing, it's good to know that puppies, when they play, take turns and take breaks as a way of keeping the play relatively calm. So if your kids are just playing and playing and playing and always trying to winning, of course it amps up the adrenaline, and eventually it becomes hard play bites and perhaps tears. So when you play with your puppy, get used to starting the game and perhaps even you're going at your puppy, and then they go at you, and then you're going at your puppy, and then they go at you, and then you're coming after your puppy, and then they're coming at you, and then also just taking a break. It won't take long after you've stopped giving your puppy attention before they also take a break, and they typically scratch themselves or shake off. So right now, little Coco, he's a 16 weeks old toy poodle, is trying to bully me into continuing to play. I can get him used to knowing that once I stop, there's no restarting until I initiate it. Okay, here we go again. Here we go again. You might want to teach your puppy this before you attempt doing it with your kids. Now, if I just want to stop the game, the most effective way is to put my hands up on my shoulders and stand up straight. I'm just going to pretend I'm standing up straight, being kid's height, and then turn your back to your puppy. It's super boring, and therefore your puppy will just stop the game, typically run over to someone else and see if they're up for a game. Come on. Stop the game, turn away from my pup. If he runs to my front, just turn the other way. It just calms down the moment. Typically, when parents tell me that the puppy has growled at the kids, it's when there's 2 or 3 kids in the family and they all want to lift up the puppy all at the same time, and they're perhaps not always doing it quite right. So therefore, my recommendation is that children under 4 just shouldn't pick up your puppy at all. Instead, get them used to sitting down flat on the floor, and then from here, only when they sit flat on their bum can they pick up the puppy. In that way, right now, even if I pick up Coco in a clumsy way, nothing really bad can happen, and he can typically get away if it all just becomes too much for him. For kids between 4 and 12, I usually say they can pick up the puppy, of course, teach them to do it properly with an arm under their bum, a hand on the chest, and then holding the puppy tight to their chest. They can pick up the puppy only with permission from you. So they have to ask first or be asked to do it. After 12, sure, they can pick up the puppy whenever they want. These are just guidelines, but you will find it helps tremendously to keep the adrenaline down and to ensure that your puppy doesn't get grumpy, angry by being picked up all the time by the kids. It won't just be training your puppy to be good around the kids. You'll find it's just as much training the kids to be savvy around the puppy. Needless to say, it's not a great idea to let your kids run around with biscuits in their hands. The biscuits are up at head height, down near the puppy, up at head height, down near the puppy. Sooner or later, you'd have a puppy that jumps up and tries to snap at their hands for the food. So while the puppy is young and your kids are young, make sure that whenever there's food around, the puppy is put in the pen or in a separate room. The kids are at the table eating, and you keep the two things separate. Would you just throw me the toy, Rob? The yellow toy? Yeah. Good. When your puppy, when you or your kids are playing with a toy with your pup, it's a good rule to say that you mustn't lift the toy higher than your waist. Your kids being only small, they'll typically put the toy up in the air, but then you also got a puppy jumping up in the air and perhaps scratching their face. If you get your kids used to always just holding the toy lower than the edge of their pants, then nothing can really go too wrong, and your kids should also be used to just letting go of the toy and letting the puppy win. You'll have to be there to remind them, just let go of the toy, you don't have to win. It won't be natural to the puppy, and it won't be natural to your kids either. It is okay when you play with your puppy that it mouths you a little bit. You know, sure, you'll feel their teeth, you'll feel the tongue. You don't have to react, you don't have to correct unless it actually hurts. Of course, it wouldn't be fair either to just rev up your puppy, building up the adrenaline, making the game more and more intense, and then boom, poking your finger down their throat to stop them from play biting you hard. Learn to read your puppy and identify the threshold where things start getting a bit out of control. And then just take a break. If your kids are teenagers, they of course are lingering somewhere between being a child and being an adult. At that age, I'm talking sort of 12 to 15, even 17, your kids have a choice of whether they want the puppy to relate to them as kids or as adults. If they behave like kids, the puppy will relate to them like kids. It'll be fun, there'll be lots of play, but there'll also be some really hard biting and not a lot of respect. If your kids behave like adults with the dog, so more like a parent and a caretaker, then they'll find that the puppy respects them much more and listens to their commands. If you have many children, 2, 3, or 4, then make absolutely sure that if they're training with the puppy, they understand that the puppy should only listen to one person at a time. If they're all competing for the puppy's attention and trying to offer treats all at once, then the puppy will focus on one person, but then when they're not getting a treat, instead of really concentrating and working out the challenge, they'll just shift their attention to someone else, and then to someone else, and then to someone else. And you can actually sort of ruin the puppy's ability to learn. So if you have kids that are all eager to train, My trick would be to just place them all on chairs and only one child gets to step up and train with the puppy at a time. When your puppy is learning a new command, it really is best if you first teach the puppy how to do it and then let the kids have a go. It's not fair for the puppy to try and work out a new command from a teacher with only the skills of a child. I hope you didn't get a puppy thinking that this was only for the kids. That situation, in my experience, never really lasts. If you didn't, then now is the time to just commit to your puppy and commit to the responsibility that it was to buy one. You are the one who is ultimately responsible for it getting fed, for the garden being poop scooped, for the grooming to get done, and for the training to be successful. Ow! Ow! No child can really be relied upon for that. Remember, your puppy is a living being. It deserves more than just a child's care.